This episode of the Central Valley Music Educators Podcast is sponsored by White's Music Center in Visalia. They have been serving the Valley's musical needs since 1947. Visit them online at whitesmusic.net.
Welcome to the Central Valley Music Educators Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Bentley. On this week's show, it's all about raising funds for your program. We'll be talking with several directors and even a parent about what fundraisers can do for your program. You can follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, or wherever you download your favorite shows. You can also listen on our website at cvmepodcast.com. I'd like to welcome to the show three of my good friends to talk about fundraising for your music program. Joining us from Monache High School in Porterville is band director Justin Adams and choir director Joshua Sutherland. Also joining us is Christine Muldoon, who's the treasurer for the Sierra Pacific High School Band Boosters in Hanford. So let's start with you, Justin. I know the band tradition in Porterville is really strong, and you have a very successful band parent organization. Can you tell me a little bit about your group?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on the show, Rob, and I'm looking forward to talking about a little what we do and what makes our program successful. I've inherited a really strong group called the Monache Band Parents Association, and they're actually a registered 501c3. One of the things that we did right away when I became director was to kind of set some goals, annual goals of what we wanted to raise, what we wanted to budget, and then how are we going to get there. At the time, one of the big traditions for Monache Band was tamales, and there was a Saturday every November that the band would come together with a group of 50 to 60 parents, and they would take over the cafeteria, and it was tamale making day. Over the years, there were some quality control issues. And so one of the things I ran into right away was, you can't do this. And I was like, okay. As a young 27-year-old, I was like, yes, sir, I will abide by that. So it took us a little while to find that niche of what was ours again. And I think we've done that. But the parents are really the backbone of what we do, because it takes so much off of me. I've noticed that this year, since we've been planning the big trip, I've done a lot more hands-on than I have in the past. And again, I think that's a post-COVID thing. I think it's going to get better. But having those parents there that could just kind of serve as that guiding force to the parents. If I came to them, I said, hey, we need this. Hey, the activity's changing. We got to start planning on making sure we have money for a drill writer, make sure we have money for composer, or any of those things that go along with the pageantry that I'm sure you've seen change over the years. They get on board and go with it. So that's a little bit of our history. They incorporated in 1983. So it's been a blessing to have that we're kind of our own separate entity from the school. Sometimes we have to make sure we don't cross. There's a lot of gray area sometimes of what can be fundraised, who can be fundraised. And so we're always kind of dealing with those challenges from time to time. But for the most part, it's been really successful to have that association and group behind us.
Yeah, a lot of directors have shared that same sentiment about, they may have an ASB account that they have to run things through. And if they run like festival registrations through another account, but if they want to buy plaques, it comes through another account. But yeah, having the separate entity was one of the best. I think I actually did that with my group at Pioneer based on the information that you gave me. I had set up a separate 501c3, and that definitely helps the school out, because they don't have to mess with it. And it definitely gives the parents a lot more freedom to do what they need to do. So what are some of the fundraisers? You said tamales. What are some of the other fundraisers that you've done over the years that have been a good one for you?
Yeah. So the one that's kind of become our annual go-to has been the annual fireworks sale. And we do it a little bit different than everybody else in town. We do a pre-sale program. And that pre-sale program is basically, they call it script. That term for most people is kind of outdated. So I use the term usually gift certificates. And they understand that. I say, guys, you're selling gift certificates to our booth. They can only redeem at our booth. That has been a great source of income for several years now. Last year, for example, we grossed 61,000, and I think 20 after taxes and TNT fireworks were paid. We ended up 25,000 in the bank.
Yeah, that's
and,
super.
When we are trying to, work on a $30,000 to $35,000 a year budget with just Monache band parents to get 2/3 to 3/4 of it done in one week. That's a really productive use of time. And it's you can do the small ones to nickel and dime and get there, but you really have to have a couple of heavy hitters so that you have that money at the beginning of the year in the bank ready to use on what you need it for.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like fireworks is a big hit for you. So one of the things I like to do for sure is talk about fails. What's a fundraiser that maybe you tried and look back on now and say, oh, I will not do that one again?
I think the one that came to my mind when I was thinking about that was we did a glow ball golf tournament. And I have played in them a bunch, and I have done them a couple of times with other groups. And they were always fairly successful. Could bring in a quick 2,000 really fast. And that was kind of what the idea was with it. It was right before COVID, and we had a parent that was volunteered to hit it up that was pretty good at marketing and doing some things, but they weren't a golfer. And I think that's where the fail came into. I think we barely cleared a couple hundred after paying for green fees, courses, prizes, and purchasing the special balls to play at night. So that was one that I think was a fail for us, just because I've seen it be successful. Another one that is I tend to always say I'm not going to do because I get so frustrated with it is the dollar chocolate bars. And it's not so much they're easy to sell. You just end up spending a lot of time and resources counting change, hunting down kids who've checked out a box that it's been under their bed for 6 months. So those type I try to avoid. Again, not necessarily fails, just challenges that go along with them.
Yeah, it's and what works at one school may totally not work at another school. So it's culture. Aaron referenced last week about the pretzel rods. Those go really well at some schools, but maybe not at others. And so you're talking about raising money, and the Monache Band is known for taking these great East Coast trips. And I hear that the Marauders are going to hit the road again. What's up with that?
So this coming summer, it's our every fourth year. So 19 was when we went last time, and we start in New York, and the trip goes from New York. We do a short stop in Philadelphia and end in Washington, D.C. Performance-wise, we perform for the Fairfax, Virginia Independence Day Parade. Fairfax, Virginia is very reminiscent of any of our towns here, Tulare, Porterville, Hanford, a really kind of 50 to 60,000 population, and they come out for 4th of July and celebrate on the 4th. And it's just an amazing little parade. It feels very much to doing one of our home parades here locally when we go do it. Everyone is excited to see the different floats, the different bands. And we are one of the few groups, we're gluttons for punishment, and we'll go in uniform. A lot of the times, because of the humidity, we see other groups that are t-shirt and shorts. And I was just, Dale Anderson and Buck Schaefer here. You just don't do that, little fella.
Nice.
You perform, you go all
right
out. And so it's a great performance venue. And then we will set up a couple of small standstill concerts in front of World War II Memorial. And in New York, I've always made it a point for the kids to see a musical. I think that is such an important thing, that they get to see what they do on a daily basis that performed at its highest level. We'll walk up to the pit to look at the pit and see what's going on in the pit at intermission. And the other thing we do is we do visit the 9/11 memorial site. And before we go, though, I do make sure to talk about the kids about how that is a resting place. It is a place of solemn. I've noticed the farther we've gotten away from 2001, how it's some people treat it as a tourist site. And I really try to emphasize to the kids, no, this is something different. And then you will see, they will come up to me even afterwards and say, hey, I noticed that. I noticed what you were saying, Mr. Adams.
Yeah, those trips, Justin, are such a great opportunity for kids to be able to go and experience a culture on the East Coast that is a lot different from the West Coast. But like you mentioned, in a lot of ways, it's small town America. You know, you go and you march in these parades and people are very patriotic and they show their appreciation for all the groups, but especially to a band that comes all the way out from California and marches in their uniforms. And we know that that takes a lot of support from your administration, a lot of support from your parents, and raising money for these fundraisers is so important for the band program and the development of these kids. Well, choirs are a big deal in Porterville as well. Josh, you've had some interesting times with raising funds. How are things going for your choir booster organization?
You know, it's going okay. I definitely maybe run things maybe a little differently than others. I don't have like a choir boosters per se. I did have a scenario where I had to change from boosters and then into just using ASB. And that was probably about 8 to 10 years ago. And ever since I did that change, it's worked for me. With my district and the way they handle money, pay for bills and things like that, they do are kind of old school, and there's needing to have to sending checks out to pay for things, and collecting, you have to have your PO first, and then you can order, and then you get it, and then you get your invoice, and then they pay out a check. So I have to find vendors that can work that way. But most of the vendors I've ever found all work that way. They're all willing to give you their products for fundraising, and I'm sure and accept it through this process that my school district has of selecting POs and sending checks afterwards. But for me, I get to work. I have a group of parents that meet monthly. Sometimes it's been this year's been harder to meet, but it's usually monthly. And I have a group of parents that help me figure out what it is we want to put on, and then I have parents that I run things by about what do they think that their kids have worked well in the past, and what have they seen on their end, because sometimes what the kids find that works well and what the parents have found that, well, I ended up buying all that stuff. Yeah. What works well for the parents too is it's a good perspective to ask both, actually. But it's always something that's a big part of the year fundraising for my program.
So what kind of fundraisers have you guys done?
So this year and a number of years ago, one of the biggest thing I do is I have parents a way for parents to put in money at the beginning of the year to go towards we call it a family patron. Okay, so that family patron idea is that because I need students to fundraise for to help with costs of dry cleaning their uniforms at the end of a school year. Because I always find it easier I've always found that I can get a better price to do in bulk than everyone can do it single. So I changed that a long time ago. So it covers, so by contributing to this family patron idea, they're covering costs of dry cleaning for the uniform at the end of the year. It helps me replace any of the uniform things I need throughout the year if we have need to replace dresses, zippers go bad, things like that, buttons, stuff like that, alterations to any of the clothing. And then I purchase shirts for the entire department, which I'm wearing today, are this year's choir shirt. Those of you listening can't see it, but I just showed Rob with that. And it's always like student design. And so there's a cool design on the back. these things.
It's cool. It's cool. Send me a picture and I'll put it in the show notes. That's a cool shirt.
How about that? And it's from our pathway here on campus. The students in the design, the multimedia and design pathway, and she created it with the technology she has accessible to, and everyone just fell in love with it, with the ideas that she brought forth. So but it covers that, and then also as a bonus, I give them tickets to each concert, and so they're getting. If we calculate the total cost, I'm asking them to contribute about $125 at the beginning of the school year. It allows me to have funds at the beginning of a school year to access, and then with that, they're covering their costs of contributing towards the uniform expense, the dry cleaning. They get a shirt, and then they're getting tickets to each of our concerts to use throughout the year. And so a lot of families have found that it's equivalent of value of what they'd be spending. It's actually a little bit less than what they were spending because they're going to be using tickets throughout the course of the year. And so that's been like a huge part of it. And I can make up to $10,000 of that at the beginning of the school year, and no cost to put out to do it. It's all stuff I needed to accumulate through other means and other fundraising, the other ways. And so it's a way to do it. Now, not everyone is going to participate in that, and lots of them want to contribute just individual fundraisers throughout the year. But that's been a really profitable and successful fundraiser to do at the start of every year. And then with that, we also do a cookie dough thing, and then I go back and forth about cookie dough too, because it's just pouring more calories and this product, do we really want everyone eating this? But people buy it. And so,
they do.
This community buys it, and they've supported it for years. And are we going to do cookie dough? Sure, we can do it. And so, and I've got a good vendor that I use, and I've been able to create a relationship with my vendor to be able to use to be able to do this each year, and I schedule it out a year ahead of time, and it's been working for us. Sure.
Yeah. So that was what I was going to say, is that in my conversations on the show that we've had so far, that's a big thing that sticks out, is that if you have a go-to fundraiser that people can count on each and every year, no matter if it's your annual dinner dance or it's your shredding event, if people know that that's the event that you really are known for, push that one as much as you possibly can. And Aaron was saying in the last week's episode that cookie dough is still their number one fundraiser for keto. It still is all over the years. It still maintains its popularity.
Yeah, and now that they've opened up this ability to for a family that's further away to be able to purchase the stuff, and then there's like a catalog of things that they can look online to purchase. And the cookie dough we have is all coming here, so they either have to be able to come here to get it, or the students and their families are going to find a way to get it to their relatives or whoever's friends that bought from them. But there's now a way for the people just to donate money, or to buy the many other things that are available online through Believe Products is what it's called.
Yeah.
Believe Products.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Aaron was talking about that definitely in last week's episode. So you've been a choir director for a while, and you've probably tried some different fundraisers, and some of them are really successful. And then there's others that maybe are, we don't want to say flop or fail, but what's a funny story about a fundraiser that you tried that maybe looking back on it, maybe you would have had second thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I have two issues. Okay. One, that I had a booster group at that time, is one of the reasons why I don't have a booster group anymore. But the booster group at the time, we were putting on a dinner, and then the booster group decided we'd already sold tickets. They said, we're not going to do it. Oh. What do you mean? What do you mean you're not going to do it? And so there was a battle of wills there about how it's going to get done, and it ended up having to tarnish our name a little bit, because There wasn't a way to, I didn't have control of, because they were running it, and I didn't have control of who all got refunded and not. They said they had refunded everybody. I still got phone calls. I didn't get a refund, all those things. So that was where it went bad. That's where I noticed that, you got to know who's on your booster group. You got to have some faith and and definitely some checks and balances about how and when when to pull a fundraiser and then how to smoothly transit if you really had to cancel it midstream. So that one was a live and learn. It's like, oh, I can never do that again unless I have some more things in place of checks and balances about. I need some more people to question, to raise the concerns. We can't just end it. We have to know how we're going to refund people, those things. So that was a live and learn moment that I've never forgotten. But the other one was that I ordered this. There was time there when we could just do things that were considered like snacks, like healthy snacks. I don't know if you remember that. And there was no chocolate now. And it's still supposed to be, but we can sell anything for some reason. I'm not sure why that is, but there was a time where they came these bags and there was these different snacks, and I got all of these items sent to me all at once, and then I stored them in one of the office spaces in my classroom, and then to distribute the following day, and then and I came back the next day, and I was sitting with my accompanist, and we were ready to get through this. And all of a sudden, she noticed a couple ants, and I said, "Oh, that's weird. A couple ants." A couple of ants turned into a huge problem. It wasn't just a couple of ants; it was a huge trail of ants, and so coming right into the product, all through the product, so we could no longer tell which product was infiltrated by ants and which was not. And we both looked at each other and said, "This is bad. This is really bad." I don't know how this all resolved. It resolved in my favor. I called the company and I said, "This is what happened." I had no idea. I can't use this product anymore. What do I do? And they said, "We'll send someone to pick up that product, and we're going to ship you a new product. Do you have another place to store it?" "Yes, I will find it."
You bet.
Yes, I'll find. So that stuff, man, I could have never even guessed that was going to happen in that situation.
We had that happen with C's Candy. Happen with C's Candy. Came in, delivered on like a Friday or something like that. Came on Monday for distribution day, and ants. Aaron was telling his story at last week's episode about a custodian who had left the pallets of chocolate on the dock on a hot afternoon or whatever, and melted chocolate. So lessons learned. So speaking of lessons learned, you and I had this discussion earlier about teacher. We have so many new teachers coming into the profession, and of course they have to live and learn. But luckily, there's some of us who have been through this before. What's some advice that you could give to some of these new directors about the importance of administrating fundraisers? You had mentioned, first of all, who you put in charge. You got to know. What else?
Yeah. Gosh, I wish I had, or maybe there was. I don't know if there's access to this kind of stuff before podcasts, and now there seems to be so much more and access to stuff than when I was starting. So I was 22 years ago when I started out teaching, but maybe some of that more information is just so much more readily available now. There's lots of directors, and if you're not seeking out how to be a choral director or how to be a band director when you're doing it, gosh, why not? It just is going to help you hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls. And then there's always going to be live and learn things. But I was just gonna also suggest, that have they ever participated in any fundraisers? Can you shadow someone doing a fundraiser that that's well? Is because if you're the choir person and the band person and you're new at the job, can you tell them, can we do this together? Can I see how you do it so I can get my footing on how to lead this? Who are the people that are going to help you handle all of this? Are you going to do it all? And you're going to find very quickly that, yes, you can do it all, although you're going to have to, there's some consequences and prices that come with that too, because then you're sacrificing your own time. If you have a family, you're going to sacrifice family time to do that. And plus, I just don't think it's safe anymore to feel like you can do that and count all money by yourself and do all those things. You need checks and balances so that there is no one that can asking questions, that you're being transparent, that you're just trying to do something for your program, because whatever your needs are that you're trying to fundraise, you're making that known ahead of time before you fundraise. We're doing it for this need. This is how much things cost. This is how much we're trying to raise. Let's do this together, and get some people on your side that you can trust to help you solve, and when problems arise, like the things we just mentioned that you can't anticipate, that are good at problem solving. And you're not stuck the only person, trying to handle this and thinking, oh no, what do I do now? It just is going to make it easier. And really, it can be a fun thing when you've got the right people. It really can be. And even the counting money, which I hate. Counting other people's money is not fun for me, but so important. But when you've got the right people, it becomes like a night that we hung out and we got it all done, and it was and turned in, and that feeling of accomplishment and hanging out with the right parents from your group make it more worthwhile.
Let's move on to Christine. Christine, you're the treasurer of the Sierra Pacific High School Band Boosters Club in Hanford. Can you tell us about some of the things that your booster club does for the band and things that your club does to get more parents involved in fundraisers?
Yes. So we feed all the kids at all the competitions. We push equipment onto the field. We do uniform fitting. We put plumes on the hats, or shakos, sorry, I always call them hats. We drive the vehicles. We raise money to purchase props for the shows, trips for any admissions to theme parks, any uniforms that are not covered by ASB. We do all the uniform cleaning. We pay for the uniform cleaning. We send the kids to drum major camp, bands council retreat, any celebration food parties. We buy the patches for the end of the year for the students, any staff gifts, judge fees, scholarships, and any repairs on the trucks or trailers, and also the wrap for those items. How we get parents involved. We have a sign-up list on our website, and we detail exactly where we need help and how many people in each event. Mr. Detlefsen sends out reminds, emails. We have meetings once a month where we go over all the upcoming events and exactly what is expected from everybody. And that's how we get all of our parents involved.
Ooh, what a list.
I know.
That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff.
We're busy.
So what kind of fundraising activities have the Sierra Pacific Band Boosters taken on to raise all this money?
So our best fundraisers would be concession stands at winter events, at football games, at graduation. And the way we make the most money on that is we ask for donations from our parents. So again, we have a list on our website, and we detail exactly what we need, how many Skittles, how many Diet Cokes, how many waters, everything, and everything is donated. So it's 100% profit for us. And then our other good fundraising events are dinners, so that we sell tickets, and either a taco drive-through dinner, or our big event would be a Chill Out with Santa in December, where we have a spaghetti dinner that's prepared by the COS culinary students, and our students serve all our guests. We have a silent auction where everything's donated. We try to get donations for all of the items for our dinner, also either through companies in the community or parents. And so we're trying to make as much money as we can without having as high expenses. And our other good event would be our shredding event. So again, we ask for sponsors through the community, and they can bring as much shredding as they want, and that helps cover the expense of the truck. So we're trying to make as much profit as we can from the community.
Yeah, finding those ways to cut overhead on fundraisers is definitely really important, because if you don't watch out, I remember we were doing a printed program and for our spring concert, and we would try to get sponsors for it. And the cost of paper and printing went up, and we didn't have nearly enough to cover the cost of the printing of the program. We had a pretty fancy program, but if you don't cut some of that overhead, it can catch up to you real quick. That was the nice thing about
everything costs so much money right now. So it definitely trying to keep the prices down for like these concession items, but it's hard when you have to pay for everything.
That's great that you have a list on the website that the parents can see exactly what's needed for the concession stands. That's cool. Yeah. So you have a lot of successful fundraisers, and obviously, you've got a bunch of great people there that are putting their heads together to make sure those happen. But I know that in your experience, and I should share this with my listeners, Christine was actually a president of my Band Boosters Club when I was at Pioneer Middle School in Hanford, and we worked together on a lot of different fundraisers and had some really good success. But Christine, can you think of a fundraiser that maybe you've done that maybe, you wouldn't recommend, or maybe it just didn't go as well as you had hoped?
Yeah. So lately we've done several dine outs, like where you go to Panda Express or Habit or any of those dine outs, and they give you 10% back. And I know there's no work on our part, but we just really don't make very much money. Like we're talking like less than $50 usually. So those aren't really worth our time. And the fundraisers I personally don't like are the items that we're having to sell items and then redistribute back to our customers, especially items that people don't necessarily need. They're just buying to help your kid. And if your kid's in multiple organizations, they're constantly selling those items, and it gets hard asking the same people to buy popcorn or candy or jerky or wrapping paper or whatever it is. Yeah, so I like that. I like the fundraisers where people need something from us. So those seem to work better.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for coming on the show. I know our listeners have really enjoyed this series on fundraisers, and I want to wish you all the best of luck on your upcoming events.
Thank you so much for having me today, Rob, and I enjoyed our time together with everybody.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob. I appreciate the time to be a part of this podcast. I really think that this could be some beneficial for people starting out and for those of us that have been around for a while, just to hear what other people are doing.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And thank you to all of those band parents who are out there pushing and selling and making things happen for our kids. It's very appreciated for our kids and the band directors, definitely.
I'd like to thank White's Music Center in Visalia for sponsoring this episode of the Central Valley Music Educators Podcast. If you're interested in sponsoring a future episode of the show, or you have a show topic that you'd be interested in hearing about, please contact me at cvmepodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review, sharing on social media, or telling a friend. For more information about the show, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Central Valley Music Educators Podcast. Have a great week.